Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Be Well Rebellion podcast, episode 10. And today I want to explore narcissism through the lens of a spiritual fog. Okay? I want to start by saying that I think that all human beings that are ordained human beings, we have a tether to the Great Spirit, to the Great Creator, to the energy that wants us all to live and thrive with as little entropy as possible, you know. I think that human beings were designed not to just enjoy free will completely, but to explore free will through the lens of responsibility and discovering what is wisdom and what is an ordained path of righteousness. Now, we do that through the guidance that we get from the Most High, from the Creator, right? Through this tether, this silver cord that we have, or gold, really, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter what it's made of. But there's a cord from each of our crowns to our Great Mother Spirit, right? Kind of like an umbilical cord. And through that cord, we are given insights, guidance, love, wisdom, all types of wonderful things like fruits of the Spirit. Now, I think there are a realm, a group of neurodivergent people, right? What we call neurodivergent. And I really just think they're like hyper wired for pattern recognition. I think these people were born onto the earth to fulfill a certain type of energetic request of the collective, right? These people come in hypersensitive, and they require us to kind of take a step back and look at all the ways that we're sabotaging ourselves. So in that sense, they are like an angelic type of influence, right? Then within that demographic of neurodivergent, it's almost kind of been like hijacked by labeling a lot of people who have endured a type of injury in that same demographic of neurodivergent, because there is some type of divergence that arises that feels like a superpower, and there is that's a resistance to programming, and then there is a type of neurodivergence that arises from an injury that feels more like a hindrance, right? So I think it does the collectives a big disservice to lump these two together, but I know it's by design. Because I know that some of those manifestations of neurodivergence are, you know, angels working on our behalf so that we can get our heads out of our asses collectively, right? Heads up, right? So that's what that group embodies to me. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, and those people are not programmable. They do not value societal norms that they can't understand the origin for. They ask a lot of questions. They treat information as like an act of love almost. Like, oh, you're doing something that's hurting yourself. Well, did you know that what you're doing is actually against your general goals in life? Like, that's a gift that they're giving, and usually it's taken as a challenge by people who are not neurodivergent, but that are running the societal programs. But anyway, so those people kind of, it's a wake-up call. Everybody's kind of doing this autonomous dance where we're like putting all of our isms and our jobs and our whatever ideologies that we're subscribing to at the time on top of our own humanity, and that's shaping our worldview, and we're hurting people because of it. So that's kind of a demographic that's requiring us to wake up and look at the effects that we're having. So there's a neurodivergent on one end. Now on the other end, similarly, I brought up that one side because similarly, I think there are narcissists who are born to be evil. I think there are narcissists that actually are intentional about it, and it's not a result of trauma, and they are minions of like a satanic type of agenda, and they are pushing the distortion because that's their job and that's why they're here, and they're absolved from certain karmic implications because they don't serve the same deity. Okay, but then And those are, I think, like malignant narcissists, or they could be no covert narcissists. They can be a variety. They can manifest, they can present in a variety of ways, but they're evil, and they're evil to their core, and they're made to be evil because they're in this realm fulfilling a certain energetic role to almost like homeopathy. They're like a small group that's supposed to kind of provoke this response in the collective. This is my beliefs, okay? These are my beliefs. So then this is a small demographic, right? The 1%, I hope to think like that it's a very small demographic of actual narcissists. Now, if you think about the story of Narcissus, he saw his reflection in the water and kind of lost touch with reality, right? And so I kind of think that narcissism manifests as a distortion of reality. So how far that distortion goes, it can go to a full inversion. And that's what this evil demographic of narcissists is pushing, a full inversion. So if you're wondering, like, why is somebody, so hurtful to me this way, they're running the full distortion. And this full distortion operates with both a skewed yin. It starts with a skewed yin, a skewed feminine energy, and then it manifests to in a skewed masculine energy. And this is how it kind of works. So, like I described before, we all have a tether, like an umbilical cord, to the great mother, the one that birthed us, right? And we get information and we get all kinds of guidance from that. These people, these narcissists, they actually have a tether to something else. They're tapping into a different kind of hive mind, and they're running a full distorted program of energy. So it starts with their broken yin, and they don't understand like life and what fosters life and what insults life. Okay, there's like no sanctity for life. And then as they kind of get those downloads of, like, this world sucks, people are shit, and I'm just gonna go out and use what I can and get what I can out of it, because nobody's helping me out. It's like a hurt, like nobody cares about me, nobody loves me, so I'm just gonna perpetuate that. And so it's contagious, okay? So this evil, like 1% or however many percent, I haven't actually asked to quantify, they go ahead and they start pushing this distortion. And because they're not subject to the same karmic laws, because they weren't actually created, they're not ordained, they're like soulless, right? Or their soul energy is tied and tethered to something else. I really don't think they're ordained. They then act in a way like that's a plague on the population, and it's contagious. And because they're not subject to the same karmic laws, they get away with this fuckery. And I call it fuckery because it's a distortion of the feminine and the masculine energy. So they feel, oh, this world is shit, nobody's gonna help me out, nobody loves me, so I'm gonna go ahead and encroach on other people. And I'm gonna keep on screwing other people over and pass that along. And I'm gonna hope too that those people flip to the dark side too, and then they pass it on. And that's where the concept of this hurt people comes from. Like, it starts somewhere. It started somewhere. And some people can argue that those narcissists are really just people who are hypersensitive to the fact that all of humanity has become so denatured. Or maybe they're not hypersensitive, maybe they're just super numb to it. All of humanity, all of men and women have become denatured in a way because we are like domesticated. So there's a hurt in our soul for that. Like, there's a great mother wound anyway that we all struggle with, whether you recognize it yet or not. But the fact that, like, our way of living is such an insult to our nervous systems is a sign that, like, we've denatured ourselves. We've removed ourselves. So we are suffering from a collective broken yin, which is why I think narcissism is spreading so rampantly, because we've got the 1% demographic that I addressed that, like, are generally very evil and have no conscience, and that's why they were born to be. Like, that's what they were born to be. And then they're here as a test. Everybody in between is being tested. What frequency are we going to align with? What energy are we going to allow to affect us and embody? They say that we become the sum of the 5 closest people to us in our lives. So it's contagious. this frequency is contagious, and it's the anti-Christ energy, because you've got the neurodivergent crowd being like, this doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. I need to get my feet on the earth. I need to know what real food is. I need to cut out all this synthetic shit. This is not my body is reacting to this whole environment, right? And then you've got the narcissists that are like, your body is attacking you. Your body is like not to be trusted. Don't listen to what your body is telling you. Listen to the man-made narrative. Listen to the rhetoric. Push the programs. Push the programs that insult your being. Because what's really important is that you stick to the program, because the program works, right? It's very Orwellian. It's very Brave New World-esque, you know? It's a complete disregard for the natural biorhythm of life, and a full distortion manifesting in the exertion of your will and your will alone, established, devoid of wisdom, you know. So it's just, the word narcissist gets thrown around so much, not because I think we have a world of narcissists that are like able to be diagnosed in that way, but I think narcissism is a spiritual fog that sets in, that we pass to others, that we visit. I think that a lot of people on their own humble stumble of healing end up visiting narcissism. And I'm not saying like a full-blown disorder of the personality. I'm saying like little bits where we are feeding off of others because we're trying to find ourselves. And so that feeding off of others might manifest as like, these are my boundaries, don't you come near me with that. And that's a valid thing if you want to protect your peace and protect your neurological system, but you get to a point when you're battling a narcissist where to try to resist their influence is also giving them power. So it's very difficult. It's a fine line with narcissists. Because a lot of times, you know, a lot of these people displaying narcissistic tendencies just picked up the spiritual fog, or they let it set in, or their holes in their aura, or their trauma caused, or whatever. And it's creating this situation where they're perpetuating this type of behavior. And feeding on other people might look like expecting them to behave a certain way around you, and then not being able to handle it when they don't. I mean, you can have boundaries. Everybody deserves boundaries. That's valid. And I think that we tolerate, generally as human beings, like we tolerate way too much bullshit. And so I am a proponent of boundaries. But if you're the one burning the bridge, there's a spiritual implication to that. And so if you're burning the bridge because you're still so affected by it, that's one path, you know, that's one walk. But you might find later, as you do your work and you're really getting really solid in your foundation of who you are and what's yours and what's not yours, and you're really getting to a point where you're controlling your nervous system in a very effective and healthy way, you might find that the real test comes from that frequency battle when you find yourself in a situation again where you're subject to somebody else's narcissism. You know, because it's really easy to stay peaceful and stay balanced when you create your own environment. But when you're subject to something that's kind of outside of your control, that's a whole new level of self-mastery and alchemy, because you're not shying away from any kind of battle, you are owning it. So like, just to give you, you know, I'm not trying to trauma dump or anything, but you need to understand that not everyone you're dealing with is human when they're behaving a certain way. So like when that spiritual fog sets into a narcissist, that's not the person you think you know anymore. it's somebody else. It's something else working through that person. Like, anybody who has endured narcissistic abuse will tell you there's a point where the person flips on you and their eyes go dark. And I know that there's some science behind that with regard to like fight and flight mode and the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and pupil dilation. I understand that. But also, there's a demon working there. It's an energy it's an anti-Christ energy. And they're pushing the distortion because they want you to pick up and also push the distortion. It's an egregore that lives on its own, and it's like the worst of the worst kind, because it's not, oh, this little bit is wrong, that little bit is wrong, this doesn't feel right. It's a full distortion. So that's why, like, you can be in a situation of narcissistic abuse and not even recognize it, because you're thinking like, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel like he says he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He feels like, but something's not right. You know, like something's not right, and it's eating me up. You know, like it's taking away from my physical well-being. I remember too, like one time my narcissistic abuser's eyes went super dark, and this is when I was praying for all intentions to be revealed to me, because I needed to distinguish, am I dealing with a man or am I dealing with a demon? Am I dealing with a man or am I dealing with a little boy who's obviously has something else driving his bus? And so I prayed for all intentions to be revealed to me, which is, as an empathic person, I strongly advise that you pray for all intentions to be revealed to you, because you know, I've always seen energetic colors around people, and I have always looked at people's colors, and if they looked muddy or ugly or dense or like really saturated in a way that like doesn't sit right with me, I used to think, oh, they've been through abuse, they've been through something in the past, you know, like they're working on it. No, that's here and now. Let me tell you, don't let your bleeding heart or your heightened compassion lead you down a road of full predator, because anyway, understand that you need to pray for all intentions to be revealed to you. Even if you think that you're tuned in and tapped into energy, these narcissists are not working with just their capacity here. It's something bigger than them. So it's poignant, it's calculated. They'll say things to you that speak to your soul in a way that have you guessing, like, or doubting yourself. They're very, very calculated, and they are just, the people themselves, the narcissists themselves, they are just unwitting passengers on this bus. But these narcissists are comprised of, obviously, like the people pushing the distortion, and then the people who fell for the distortion. We fall for the distortion in so many ways, and because of trauma, bad experiences with our mothers or fathers, bad experience with our partners, bad experiences with authority, denaturing from earth, as I said before, removing ourselves from the earth, so our whole neurological systems are screwed up anyway. You know, I talked about before the mother wound. Now, if you are born to a mother who is stressed out, you as a baby are co-regulating with a woman who does not have her baseline stress levels worked out. So then you're going to carry that through your life until you resolve it, okay? Until you realize, oh, my mother was stressed out because of such and such. My mother was afraid of lack because of this. My mother was afraid of, you know, whatever. Or my mother was compensating in this way or that way. Then that's when you begin to regulate your own nervous system, and you start to see what's yours and what's not. It's the same thing with the earth. We become denatured. Our whole nervous systems are off. And as we recalibrate with the earth, we recognize where our wounds lie. So back to the narcissist mother wound, they're not at all even looking for a symbiosis. All they're doing is eating. That's it. And they're allowed to. That is their ordained path. So then you get back to your path as an empath. You can, as I was saying before, you can burn your bridge, or you can learn to be so freaking solid in yourself and so ego-less that the next thing you find yourself in the presence of a narcissist, and maybe they say some kind of backhanded comment, and you say, oh gosh, it sounded like a comment to me. I mean, it sounded like a compliment to me, but maybe it also sounds like you're trying to hurt my feelings, and I don't really appreciate that. You become somebody who is so freaking open that you become dangerous to a narcissist, and that's what a child is like. That's what a child is like. Like, I will never forget my 5-year-old daughter, right? She was my second daughter. She came to me and she said, Mom, can I say F you to anybody? And I was like, no, of course not. Like, we don't talk like random, I will say, but generally, like, that's not something you direct towards somebody. You don't say F you, that's a curse. Like, you don't say that. And she's like, oh, well, what if someone says it to me? And I said, well, if somebody says it to you, I mean, I guess you can fight fire with fire, but you really don't want to, stoop down to that level. But sometimes that's the language those people speak. I left it at that, right? So she's drawing her picture, and she's drawing me a picture. She brings me a picture that says, I love you. And then she drew a picture for her dad, and it said, F you. And he comes running inside and yelling at me as if I had told her to say that, as if I told her to draw him a picture that said, F you, And he's yelling at me, saying, you told her to say this, and you're such a terrible mother, and what kind of mother would alienate her children from their dad, and you're just a wicked person, right? And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And he shows me the picture. Look at this picture. It says F you. You told her to write that. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, I told her she can say F you to anybody who says F you to her first. And so then he felt self-righteous, but that's kind of how it works. You are innocent. You say, okay, this is the program we're running, then why this? Then why that? And you start calling out these, you be bluntly honest, but with love, as if we are all trying to foster life. And then the next thing you know, with that, acknowledgement that the narcissist is not trying to foster life. In fact, they are insulting it. In fact, they are attacking it. In fact, they are attacking anything that is life. Well, at that point, the trash kind of takes itself out. You can't get blamed. You have to be somebody that cannot be blamed in any way. For their downfall, their demise, because they will blame you if they can. But ultimately, narcissism manifests as a lack of accountability. So because we have AI now, we see that narcissism behaving in a way where you are not being accountable for how you affect others, but you are holding them extra accountable for the way that you feel affected by them, right? We now have AI. So if you want to avoid hard parts of life, generally speaking, that opportunity will be allowed to you. And I think the narcissists, that's like the end game for spiritual growth and development. What are you going to take accountability for? And if a solution is presented to you so that you can avoid accountability, are you going to take it? Like I say all the time, I like doing things the hard way because I like the energetic equity that comes with it. I don't like asking ChatGPT about something because it doesn't teach me how to research. I like to research because I like to decide, okay, well, I like to consider who wrote that. What might they want me to think? How much did they pay for me to think this? How readily available is this information? Who put it out? What's the byproduct of me believing it? So I like the equity that comes with full accountability. I also like the equity of writing things down. That helps my brain remember them. It helps me choose my words better. As I'm writing, I'm connecting neurons that serve me, right? So I want the equity that comes with doing things the hard way. I like growing my own food because it's cleaner and it's healthier for my body, right? I like learning how to discharge my own debt because it saved me thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars, and my mom's money too, and I now don't feel victimized by the world. Do you know what I mean? So like, you'll see there's so much narcissism because the answers are readily available, but if the path isn't walked, like, you just can tell by the vibration that they're just not speaking from the heart. They're copy and pasting. So I call them copy paste people too, because they'll see like they'll be curious about something, right? And they'll ask you about it, and you'll say, well, let me describe the nuance to how I got to this this solution, like this conclusion. And they're just skip through it. I just want to know the answer, you know? And so they'll kind of like do that through your stories. And then later when they're like, oh, I'm trying to put this formula you gave me to use, you're like, well, you really didn't listen to all the details and all the intricacies that like went into that. But that's how the narcissistic mind works. They just want the end result. They don't want to hold space for the sacred stuff in between. And I used to think that was a valid way of being, like, if it wasn't my way of being, but I used to think it was valid. But now I realize it's not. It actually fully insults life. And you get to a point where the collective is so dumb that they don't understand why we do anything. And there's so many layers and layers and layers of deception now that goes into this programming that if you just accept the program, you really will die to it. You really will. There's going to be something along that path of accepting the program that's given to you, that at some point is going to be your trigger to wake you up. And if you really vehemently do not want to wake up, you will put your head in the sand and you will transform into a type of narcissist because you've allowed that spiritual fog of a lack of accountability inside you. And now you don't want to know the truth. You want to continue operating on your way with your willful ignorance. And if anybody around you starts to talk about the truth, you're pissed off about it. It's just, if somebody, you know, all I can think of is this one situation where this little girl was saying, oh, I only eat with plastic forks. I love plastic forks because I don't like it when my metal fork gets hot. Why is Desi, my daughter, why is she not allowed to eat with a plastic fork? And I said, well, I mean, it's not that she's not allowed, but I have another fork here, and I know that plastic can be an endocrine disruptor. So if another fork is available for hot food, we try to use that instead. But, you know, there's poison everywhere, and we just kind of try to walk our line to find our balance, right? Well, her mom got really pissed off, saying that she was angry that I was talking about the fork she was using. I'm not allowed to talk about the fact that plastic has endocrine disruptors in it because she didn't want her daughter to know that. I don't understand. You know, she decided, this is easier for me. Don't talk about anything that might make me feel like there's something I could change that I'm not. And we don't change these things out of all kinds of things. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's laziness, maybe it's a lack of understanding. You know, there's so many reasons why we're like, I just want to rest in my delusions. Please don't bother me. But when we do that, that's us visiting narcissism. And we might not be malignant narcissists, and we might not necessarily be overtly feeding off of other people, but we are expecting people to tiptoe around the truth in our presence. And that is feeding off of other people's behavior. So the narcissism is more widespread, I think, than anybody actually really wants to admit. And it manifests in the full distortion. So instead of a healthy feminine energy of reception, instead you feel entitled, like the Jezebel spirit. Instead of a healthy masculine energy of holding space for that feminine energy, or holding space for, things to grow, husbandry. Instead of doing that, an unhealthy, inverted masculine will encroach on other people's lives. And maybe they'll say, there should be a law for that, or I'm going to pass a law against this, or I'm not going to let you do this or that. Sometimes I understand that it's valid because people are their own worst enemies, but if you don't let them make their own mistakes, and you say, oh, I'm a rogue kind of patriarch because I love you, well, that squashes life. Or you say, I'm a rogue kind of patriarch because I freaking hate you, that's also obviously squashing life. So the Jezebel, inverted, skewed yin, thinks that you deserve people's attention, you deserve people's energy, you're entitled to people's bending to your will. And then the skewed masculine is like, I'm gonna enforce that notion. I'm going to make sure that you feel uncomfortable around me. I'm going to talk over you. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman, that's how those energies manifest. And obviously the behavior changes according to your gender and your environment, but if you are not doing your work as an inside job and you think it's an outside job, you're working with that inverted energy. And I think that so many of us are triggered by the word narcissist that we don't want to consider the potential that we're working with that rogue energy, but we are. And what's crazy too is the concept of like Dolores Cannon's earth splitting, the concept of ascension, the concept of like salvation and deliverance from evil. I think it really is so nuanced and such a narrow path. I do think that we have to be able to get to a point where we can coexist with these narcissists, and instead of letting them be contagious, like their energy be contagious on us, I think we're supposed to be like battling frequency-wise. I think that some of them are supposed to be removed from our lives, absolutely. Like if you're having one of those evil ones that's not swinging one way or the other, they're just complete soul loss, or never had one to begin with, or just doing their job, those will get removed from your lives. But I think if there's somebody in your life that's visiting narcissism and they're, teetering between their humanness and then running the inverted program, I do think that the role of the empath is to slip into this embodying enough of a lack of ego to where you can subject yourself to this kind of fuckery enough to say, hey, this is an inversion, and help save some lives there. If you ever are wondering why somebody can hurt you so badly and not seem to care about how you feel, they're running the distorted program. So them hurting you was like, they got something from that. They might never get to, you might never be willing to subject yourself to being a target again, so they might never feed off you again. It might be, when you say it's done, it's done. But that's what they're doing. They're just gonna feed off, they're gonna go find somebody else and feed off the next person. So you can't get your feelings hurt about it because they're doing their job. And that's why sometimes they just vibrate right out of your lives. Like it wasn't, when I was enduring narcissistic abuse, it wasn't anything outside of me that got it to go away. It was me. I became somebody who wasn't able to be fed on anymore. So, when I was accused of something that I know I didn't do, I didn't let it, I was no longer like, what do you mean? Why would you accuse me of doing that? I'm flabbergasted, right? I didn't let my I didn't let my flabbers be gasted anymore. So, I just didn't let it happen anymore. So as soon as he started accusing me of something that was like obviously not anything I did or would ever do, or anybody that knows me would ever think that I would ever do. And I just said, I rebuke you. I rebuke you, you creepy little narcissist, you shriveled up little troll in there. I know, I got your number. And it was sad because, you know, I actually had to, I had to mourn the death of somebody that was like still living. You know, somebody I thought had potential, that did have potential. I know that he did because he used to cry a lot about things that hurt him inside, that he never actually wanted to change. Maybe this was a form of covert narcissism, you know. They do this thing where they hate themselves. There's some kind of self-loathing, but it never actually begets any change. It's really just a way for them to keep on feeding off of you and keep moving the goalposts. But at some point, you know, you recognize that you can rebuke an energy working inside somebody, and they can decide to go down with it. And they can decide to not do their work. And, like, you have to be okay with that. Because I think I said in another video, I heard Jordan Peterson say, if somebody is drowning and they have their hands around your neck, and it's either they go down or you both go down, it's got to be them. That wasn't, your ordained path is not to be killed by a narcissist. I promise you that. Your ordained path is not to cater to other people's lack of accountability and tiptoe around the things, their delusions, so that they can feel okay and you can be holding all the bags energetically. That's not your path in life. You've got things that you were born to do. You know, like, my mind always goes toward, what would a world look like full of empaths, full of just people that were tuned in and caring and, you know, doing their best? What would that look like? And it makes me think about how, you know, like I mentioned, ascension, grounding. I really think that, I don't think ascension, I don't think rapture, I don't think any of that shit is really what you gotta have your eyes on if you're trying to live in a world without narcissists, because the empathy is cultivated through grounding. You don't vibrate up out of the earth and become this, like, empathic person. You get dirty and you ground into that. So ascension is a misnomer. I think it's actually something you ground into. I mean, the Bible even says multiple times that you know, evil is taken out, it's plucked out. And so I really think that you become something that narcissists and that demon can't feed on when you really ground into who you are. You listen to your body, and you start to call out the things in your life that are not working, not for you. Like, I don't even know where they came from. It wasn't even, you know, it's just full distortion programs. And these narcissists, they just kind of vibrate right out of it because you're not somebody they can feed on anymore. And they'll try to keep their hooks in you somehow. They will. So, like, for me, I remember when I prayed for all intentions to be revealed, my ex-husband told me that he was from hell, was going to return to hell, and would do anything in his power to make me, to destroy me. That was his life's mission, and take our children with him. So that wasn't a human talking. That wasn't. I mean, there's too much weird magic and stuff that happened in my home that anybody can tell me that narcissism is anything other than a demonic attachment. And it is the demonic attachment. It's the Antichrist. Anti-life. Christ is that which fosters life. And I say it like in another video, I said it like that because it's not just I foster life and I use, you know, Western medicine to cut, burn, and poison, but at least you're here, happy mom, happy baby, or healthy mom, healthy baby is all that matters, right? No. No. So, anyway, just look out for the distortion. And as you battle, like once you have removed yourself from the distortion and you start to really recalibrate and you understand your, the way your nervous system works, you've worked through your triggers, you have started to really repent and give your life to what is good because you're so sick of this bullshit. You're at a point where you're just like, I'm done. I want what's good. I want to foster what's good. I don't want to feed anything that is trying to hurt people anymore. You pray for all intentions to be revealed to you, and the next thing you know, they are. They are. And they are in a variety of ways. And you will know good people will behave in ways that feel narcissistic because they're afraid or they're traumatized. And if you recognize that, call it out. Call it out with no ego and with love. Hey, I see you twisting the words that I'm saying. Is that because there's something you need to talk about that's deeper than what's going on? I hear you trying to sow chaos. I hear you gossiping. I hear you trying to blame other people for something that you had, a role in. Why do you think that is? Sit with that. Because there were times in my own path where like I was the narcissist. There were times where I was like, these are my boundaries and I need you to like adhere to them. When really nobody really owes me that, And then I get to choose. Okay, so I've said my boundary, I've spoke my piece. And now there are people that are showing me either, oh man, I didn't realize I was affecting you in that way, or this is who I am. And if you don't like it, don't be around me. And those, what do you do with those people? Okay, then I will vibrate right out of your existence with no sad feelings about it either, because that loss is a good riddance. So we are watching a lot of narcissists implode, and we're watching a lot of good people fall for the narcissistic program because they don't necessarily want to do their own work. But it really feels like frequency wars, empathic people who are diverging from societal norms, challenging these narcissistic kind of programs with the truth of the matter. Because like, okay, a narcissist will want to, the rogue, I talk about my garden a lot, the inverted masculine in my garden will want food production, and I don't care what it takes, right? So, because this Jezebel spirit, I feel, if I'm a narcissist, I got this Jezebel spirit, I feel really entitled to clean, healthy food. And so I want, ultimately, I want my grocery store should be growing it, and my groceries are, and blah, 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 everybody else along the way. But if it ultimately comes to me and I'm like, fine, I'll do something about it, and I decide as a narcissist to grow a garden, you can bet that it's going to be really meticulously groomed. You can bet that there's probably gonna be some pesticide application. You're probably gonna have like a high yield too for a little while, and then you're gonna see that your soil's depleted. You're gonna see that you have totally gotten rid of plant species that would have helped, been natural pesticides through their pungent smells. You will be picking all the hornworms off your tomato plants like I talked about in my last video, and then missing out on these wonderful wasps that would have come in and taken over for you. What I'm saying, like, there are a variety of ways to go about it, and the narcissistic way looks like it'll work for a while. And right now a lot of narcissists are getting like material blessings because they're doing their part energetically in the collective, like, but that's where their buck stops. Like they're destined for I don't even know if I have words to describe it. They're destined for circling the drain. You know what I mean? Like just going around and around and around until they finally get destroyed, I guess, because they're not allowed to operate in realms that are predicated by life. So if you get on board with life, the narcissists kind of just vibrate out of your life. So if you want to avoid this narcissist demon, I suggest you look at your life and look at the ways that you are cutting corners, because you're only cutting your own equity corners. I think that you should look at the company you keep, and do they drain you? Are they like just showing up at certain times in your life to feed off of whatever it is that you're going through? You know, look for ways that you are not taking accountability for yourself. If there are things that you're enduring, health things or relationship things, you know, I was in an abusive relationship because I was somebody who was consenting to it. I was feeding it. So it's not like it was all his fault. Like, I allowed him to turn into this monster, and I allowed him to behave that way. And when you look at the duality within yourself, even just your soul versus your own flesh, you know, they work with different frequencies, different densities, and which one do you want to align with? And the soul will tell you all the ways that you are, and the body will tell you all the ways too that you are sabotaging yourself. But you want to operate in a soul kind of way. And you might find that when you start to embody this level of authenticity, and you're doing your work, that you are just infuriating the people around you that don't want to do theirs. And you might wonder, like, what did I do to make this person so mad? You were just being yourself. You probably, if somebody is angry with you, so angry with you, that they're like burning bridges, and they're not even, you're not even worth having a conversation over it, you know, and they're just, you know, writing you off and treating you poorly, you can bet that you're probably doing something in your authentic state that's really bothering them, that they are squashing within themselves. A lot of times when people grieve, they are very honest, and sometimes other people might just really recoil because they can't access parts of themselves. There is a saying that you can only meet people as deeply as they've met themselves, and that's so true. And you can't dig in with a narcissist because they don't know themselves that well, and they recoil and turn away from authentic parts of their own being, so they attack the authentic parts of your being. And they don't want to see you heal either, because they know that there's healing that they don't care to do. And that's one really big test with a narcissist. You start questioning the paradigms, and you start wanting to heal, and they start discouraging you from doing that. That is a big red flag of narcissism. So in short, I really just think that narcissism is more than just the personality disorders. I think the personality disorders are even called narcissism, or we use the same term to describe the full inversion. And we pretend like it's just we use the same term for a personality disorder, because I think that it's actually a demonic attachment. And just like we hide neurodivergence in some labels that we apply to injuries, I think similarly we're hiding an actual demonic attachment in something that we've labeled as a personality disorder, just so that when people exhibit it, most people will respond with, well, they're not a diagnosed narcissist, and you're not a psychologist, and whatever like that. It doesn't negate the fact that narcissism seems to follow a certain formula, because the inversion leaves no room for anything sacred. You know, the inversion is a full emphasis on perverting what should be preserved and emphasizing things that really just don't matter. So, I kind of forgot what I was talking about there in terms of, like, in a nutshell. I just think that we're hiding it. I think there should be a different term for narcissism than, or we should just stop reducing it to a personality disorder, because I think it's something that a spiritual fog that slips into many of us. In fact, I think it's become so pervasive that I think our court system operates that way, our medical system operates that way, like Western medicine and the legalese in court, and, you know, the way that we have become specialized and in our respective fields, and then that doesn't really lend itself to wisdom as applied to other fields. You know, like when it comes to medicine, for instance, I think that health should always be like a comprehensive, holistic approach, but instead it's like I watched my dad have cancer and deal with the byproducts of, you know, the effects of the cancer treatments and stuff, and it was like he was bounced around. Well, this is a neurologist. Oh, well, you need to go to a cardiologist. Oh, well, no, well, go ask your whatever. You know, like nobody was really doing anything because everybody was only just dealing with their one thing. And so it's like a 9-based number system. It's totally designed that way. It's designed to give a certain output. And I just think, you know, narcissism has become so pervasive in our society that we don't even think of it as being abnormal. Like we have normalized narcissism within a lot of relationships, and that's why people are using each other, and love has been taken out of a lot of the equations. But you have got to always vet your programs. What programs are you running, and do they foster life, and do they foster the things that foster life, so that you don't fall victim to this narcissistic full inversion fog. Don't let it in you. And then after you get your bearings, feel free to venture back out into the world and revisit some of those relationships that you thought you couldn't stomach when you're dysregulated state. And now that you're in a stronger, more empowered, more aware, more calculated position, you can revisit those dynamics and alchemize them, transmute them, and use them to your advantage. You gotta become the dark empath. I talk about I talk about Earth. Earth is like the darkest of empaths. She will let you run your full distorted programs until her resources scream out, and then she will fucking just volcano, earthquake, and flood you away. She's gonna give everybody enough rope to hang themselves. And it's so crazy to watch how the people in life who have decided, who have aligned with avoiding accountability through AI programs, through Western medicine, and letting, you know, outsourcing their own personal responsibility to their doctor. Be like, well, I don't have to think about what I'm putting in my body because this is what my doctor said, and my doctor, I like my doctor, you know? Like, good luck to you. If you're outsourcing your power to anything, you are going to go down with it. Or you're going to be presented with the opportunity to repent so that you don't. But repentance is an action. It's not just a new thought. Anyway, it's wild out here. Stay away from people who are trying to drain you. Make yourself available to the extent that you're able, for the people that you feel like are still, you know, swinging, their pendulum is still swinging, help guide them. Yeah, I just think that we all need to vet the programs that we're running. Are they distorted? Do we feel entitled to anything? Is there an area that we are going to get the rewards of something that we are not doing the work for, in which case you're being set up and the equity is being stolen from you? So you go to ChatGPT, you ask ChatGPT about the Akashic records, you're going to be lied to. And you're going to be lied to in a way that is going to fucking take you down. Until you recognize. And we're all gonna endure these collective wake-up calls until we actually wake up. And some of us, lots of us, are destined to wake up, but some here are the biblical tares, and they're gonna be plucked out, and they don't belong, and they are narcissists. And the world will be a better place when you have learned, and when we have all learned, to stop letting our love cover their multitude of sins, because they are awful. They are so desperate for energy from the innocent that they're just marrying children, stealing children, you know, hurting children. Even in the typical American household, people are oppressing their children and feeding off of them. Narcissistic mothers, rogue masculine fathers. Children are the yin. Children and women are the yin of this earth that are being attacked the most, because if you can skew that yin, then you're really getting to the source of things, aren't you? Like I talk about the mother wound, a lot of men struggle with a mother wound. They have, or males really, because you know, they had a mother that was maybe dysregulated, they co-regulated to her, and then that's it. Like women at least have a womb that tethers them to the earth, so they can, it's like a kind of like whisper wake up call at all times. But men, it's like they can get really far off before something happens that they're like, that it's like wake up, you know? I just find their bodies are more calloused, maybe, because they have to endure a lot of things anyway. So like if a woman, if she's off, like she's feeling it, whereas a man, it's like we're told, oh, you're supposed to feel off, so get back to it, sir, you know, like that's not good for him either. But we can talk more about how to nourish the feminine and nourish the masculine, but ultimately just recognize that narcissism is a full inversion, and these people have to feed off of others, because as soon as you're running a full inversion, you're not and as soon as you're saying like there's something I need to pay attention to for my own healing, or to be a better person or whatever, or to fulfill my purpose, my ordained purpose, but I'm not willing to do that, that cuts you off from the Most High. You know, it says like in the Bible, I think Jesus at one point said something like, I can forgive everybody except for the ones who turns their back on the Holy Spirit. That's what I think it is. Like there is the mother, the Holy Spirit is that's what they call it, to hide the mother. It's like there is a mother, and she's trying to give you guidance through like her womb, right? Through her womb magic. And you're like, nope, I just am going to run this other program. So you cut yourself off. And you're the biblical tares. And there are so many more biblical tares than I would like to admit right now, but I really do hold the vision that most people will wake up. And I used to hold a vision of like my narcissistic ex-husband, like the abuser. I used to hold the vision of his best life and like his health and, you know, him being the best version of himself, because I knew that what he's doing is really, really terrible right now. But I was trying to kind of hold that vision of him living his best life, hoping that through some kind of spiritual bioresonance, it would also help my children. And, you know, like I want the best for everybody. But I realized that I can want the best for somebody else, but if they don't want the best for them, I'm wasting my imagination holding that vision. And my life energy, my equity is being spent on something that's not fostering that which fosters life, right? I told this to my friend, and she said, yeah, you can't pull from an empty well. And she's right. Some people out there are empty wells, and they are not worth your energy. They're not worth your forgiveness. They're not asking for your forgiveness, so why would you give it? You need to call in judgment on that type of energy because it doesn't belong here. And as soon as you do, you sleep well at night. Your spirit feels lighter because you know that you're not complicit in some kind of bullshit energy. Like, I had children with a evil person. Do you know the amount of repentance and work I have to do with my children just to try not to cause my family to bleed on the world? Do you know how much, like, I have to tend to my own garden? As I got so off track that I actually had children with somebody who was running the distortion, the full inversion. I mean, like, this is a man who the state tracked him down and finally got him to pay, one child support payment toward his children, and he figured out a way to nip it in the bud immediately. Like, he does not want to care for his own children because that would be fostering life. So do I look at him and think, like, how can he do this? How can he treat his own children this way? How can he treat the mother of his children this way? How can he treat his own family? How can he do this? No, I'm not worried. Now I understand. Now I'm not confused. Now I understand that's the program he's running. And I accept it and I rebuke it. I don't consent to it. I accept that he is who he has shown me to be. I accept that his words don't mean shit if his actions are going to continue to insult life. Like, I accepted that. And the sooner I accepted that, the sooner I was able to transmute my energy into only what truly benefits myself and my children and the world at large, or Earth, really. I took ownership. I looked at him and was like, oh gosh, look at this monster I married. Well, shit. Can I help him transform into the best version of himself? Can I pray that into existence? Can I fast so that I can eliminate anything that I'm doing that contributes to his reactionary state? You get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm doing my work, and then you're like, you know what? It's not my fault. It's not my fault. You're just a terrible person. Oh, you're not just a terrible person. You're just a walking dead. You're dead inside. You're walking around, but it's not your soul that's operating your body. It's something else. And I remember too, when he left, my 3-year-old at the time, we were riding in the car one day and she goes, hey, did you know Dad's actually dead? And I was like, well, what? I said, did you have like a dream or something? Like, is he really dead? And she was like, no. There's a body walking around, but he's not in it. And I was like, oh, I know. I can imagine. So children, they pick up on it. And you should too. And as soon as we, as a collective of like empaths, we stop gaslighting ourselves and pretending like these narcissists are working with the same program that you are for life. Like, as soon as we can accept that there are a variety of humans here and that they are working with a variety of energies, like, there are haplogroups here that are incapable of empathy, like full blood type groups that cannot empathize. Just like how there's whole groups that can't have an inner monologue. Like there's whole groups that can't empathize. The rogue patriarch and the Jezebel, they birthed children too. And they were running amok. And I'm not saying you gotta give up on everybody, because like I said, I really do think that most people are just traumatized into running this narcissist program. But you have got to wake up to it, the existence of it, so that you can rebuke it. And when you rebuke it, you're gonna see that it causes some people to go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for what I've done. I had no idea. I didn't even realize, and I want to be better. And then you're going to rebuke it, and some people are going to go, fuck you. This is who I am. And you have to accept that. But anyway, I hope that maybe this helps you if you are enduring any kind of narcissistic abuse, or you are trying to kind of work through your own humble stumble, where you are vetting the programs that you've been running all this time. Like, I'm here to help you. But I think it's time for us to pick a side, because there is a split. There is a split. And you cannot coexist. If you find that you're able to coexist with narcissists pretty easily, you just might be you might just be, I don't even know how you could, I don't even know how you could cooperate with them, because you then are co-signing for their energy. So if you're in contact with narcissists and you're not rebuking them, and you're not taking the opportunity to put them in their place, you're complicit. They thrive on your silence, and they feed on worship, and they take your acceptance of them, like as consent, and you should really be mindful. Like if you're a woman and you're married to a narcissist abuser, you have to do your best to try not to let that person have an influence that affects other people outside of your home. And that's that's a big job. I know that when I was married to somebody who I recognized later was evil, I thought to myself, I don't want to be standing next to this person. I don't want to at all seem like I am having any kind of allegiance or alliance with him. I didn't like the way that he treated other people. I was embarrassed a lot, and I realized I'm having children with this person. I'm going to perpetuate this if I don't do something. It's just like we're all, in the sense of a narcissistic rogue inversion of energy that's railroading the whole population. Some of us are in the trunk, some of us are in the passenger seat. If you find that you are somebody that is in the passenger seat, metaphorically speaking, if you find you're a woman who wants to do right, but you realized you aligned with an energy that is destroying the world, you owe it to yourself and to the people in the trunk to grab the wheel and derail it. You know what I'm saying? That's repentance, and repentance will take different forms regarding who you are and what you perpetuated with your compliance. So for me, it manifests as rebuking the energy that the person was working with, telling my story to the people who are subscribing to the lies, raising my children in a way that they're not pushing the distortion. I already have, children who are afraid of men, So I already have children who like are recoiling from the idea of marriage. So I'm, having to do my part to tell them that, yeah, there are a lot of males that are destroying this place, and there are a lot of females that are just terrible, but you gotta be the woman, and you gotta be able to recognize the man when you see it. And it's for my son, you gotta be the man, recognize the woman. It's just, sorry. There's a rooster under my deck. So on that note, let me know if you need help with all of this. I'm here for you. It's a full distortion. Beware. Beware of the distortion. And call it out. Call out the distortion, because usually that is the first thing to just protecting yourself in it. Public notice. I fully disagree with all of this rogue masculine energy that is infiltrating homes, institutions, hospitals, and just general paradigms that we work under in society. I rebuke it all. I want to foster life, and honestly, every time I hold a vision now, I hold a vision of like heaven on earth, and those narcissists, I'm not holding the vision of their best lives anymore. They're just out of the picture. So, life feels good. And I hope you can also navigate this with me, rebuking, honing in on what needs to be rebuked, and to tend to our collective garden. Anyway, thank you, and take care, and stay strong, and stay loving, and stay true to yourself and your body.